We're good. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I have 6 o'clock and a quorum of voting commissioners, so I will open up the Mashpee Conservation Commission meeting for Thursday, July 27th, 2023. We are meeting tonight in the Wacoit Meeting Room, Mashpee Town Hall, 16 Great Neck Road North. The meeting is being broadcast live on local cable channel 18 and also streamed live on the Town of Mashpee website. Before we begin, if you would like to join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I hope it's warm enough for everyone.
Really bad humor.
Maybe a little warmer tomorrow, who knows? Okay, the first thing I will call for is public comment for any issues that are not related to agenda items that we have posted for tonight's meeting. So if there's anyone in the audience or online that would like to say something to us before we get started, this would be the time. Nobody online. And hearing no one here, I'll move along. Pre- and post-hearing agenda items. We do not have enough commissioners present to approve those meetings for July 13th, 2023. So we'll just move those to our next meeting?
Sure.
Okay. And rather than to get into the discussion item, I think I'll go to the first hearing.
If I could,
Yes.
there's a gentleman here who has requests to make a determination of what type of filing will be for his project. It'll be pretty brief. If we can do
Sure.
that first.
Sure, we could.
Mike Canada.
Sure.
This is
why
under
not?
communication and correspondence.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
No, it's okay. Just pictures of the building, front, side.
So for those of you with an agenda, we're dropping down to communication and correspondence. Mike Canada, it's a permit determination for addressing structural issues on an existing home.
Good
It'll
evening.
take a few minutes. Good evening, Mike.
How are you guys? Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm just looking for a determination. Drew requested I come here and ask the board as a whole. The job is in the very, very baby stages. I don't have any architectural drawings or engineering done as of yet. Just trying to get some guidance on what you guys might want on this particular job, which is a little odd. So
What's
it's
the address, Mike?
It's 31 Birch Way. I took some pictures of it this morning. It's a structure that was built in the 70s. The main house, the issue there is the main house was poured, foundation, and then there's a breezeway and a garage moving toward the street away from Wakeby Lake in front of that main house. And what they did was, whoever the builder was, he poured the main house and then he dug a giant hole 15 feet deep and filled it full of stumps and brush, and then backfilled on top of that and then poured the foundation for the garage and breezeway on top of that. So the homeowner called me, panicked, and said, my house is falling down. I said, what do you mean your house is falling down? So I went and took a look, and sure enough, the house is fallen about 5 inches off the main house. It's broken away.
The main house.
Yeah, it's the garage and breezeway have sunk because the
Yep.
stumps and trees are rotting over the years. And so I brought in an engineering firm, we did core samples down 16 feet, and sure enough, they were full of wood product in the core samples at the foundation. So what has to be done here is we've got to dig it out all the way down, foundation, knock the building down, dig it out all the way down to the base to good soil, refill it with gravel and compact it every 6 inches till we get up to the new foundation grade, pour a new foundation and put it back. So the work zone is on the street side, not the lake side of the bank. In the pictures, you'll see there's no vegetation to be removed, and the footprint is going to be the same as what it currently is. So basically, we're trying to fix what's there that's in trouble and put it back. The only difference right now that I see maybe coming down the pike is the footprint will be the same, but the homeowner might want a room over the top of the new garage. But other than that, there's no change in footprint laterally whatsoever from what's existing. So because the work is away from the bank and away from the lake and on the street side and no vegetation removal whatsoever, I thought it might be appropriate to have an NDA, but I needed you guys to determine that, whether I need a notice of intent, or an RDA, excuse me, not NDA, RDA. Yep, or an NOI on that. So that's kind of why I'm here.
Yeah.
I just want some guidance, so when I hire my engineer, I know which way we're headed. That's all.
Do you think that there will need to be a replacement with the septic system?
No, the septic system's brand new, because the house was sold maybe 4 years ago, something like that, and the system was installed new at that point.
So if there was an increase in bedrooms with the living space above the garage, it wouldn't need to be altered?
No
to meet
increase in
that?
bedrooms, just an open room,
Okay.
yeah.
And is the entire house coming down?
No, that's the other thing, is the house is sort of the buffer between the work zone and.
The breezeway and garage?
Correct, so in other words, the house is here, and we're working in front toward the street on the two pieces of foundation that are on the front side. So the only thing we have to take out is driveway and a little bit of lawn. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So no trees, no vegetation, we're not working near the bank, but the whole project is within your jurisdiction, so it's up to you guys to let me know how you wish to file that when I get ready.
Drew, do you know how far from the bank we're talking? Did you look at that at all?
What would you say the setback is?
From the bank,
Yeah.
the breezeway, which is closest to the lake, I would estimate at 80 feet, maybe,
80 feet.
something like that.
Sandy, any thoughts?
No, I mean, it seems like it's an emergency situation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to see a little bit of lawn gone, too.
Yeah.
We don't have any written information. I'm not missing anything, am I?
No.
No.
No?
No, he's just looking for some
Which-
guidance on how to file.
What was the body of water that we're talking
It's on Wakeby Lake,
Mashpee
man.
Wakeby Pond.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It's an
um,
inland bank.
Yeah,
Right.
The resource area leading down to the pond, and the house is within the 100-foot buffer to the top. of the
Gotcha.
bank.
And the property's in compliance otherwise, as far as vegetation goes?
Yes.
Okay,
I would think RDA.
I think an RDA.
What do you guys think?
Sounds good to me.
RDA.
It
Yeah.
sounds like
Okay.
something that,
All right, great, that's what I needed, perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll have it prepared for you.
thank you.
Do you want to keep those pictures, or?
You probably want them back as souvenirs or something.
With the permit when it comes through.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely,
So I can stick it in the file.
perfect.
All right, thank you guys
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
See you
you.
later.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
There you go.
Let them all be that easy.
Yeah.
Well, here
No,
we
but
go.
let that not be the
We're gonna-
news that
we're
any
gonna do our
homeowner wants
best.
to get.
Oh my God, I know.
Move right along here.
And if it just sold a couple years ago,
Oh, my God.
So I'm now going to call the 6 o'clock hearing for 33 County Road. Betty Ann O'Reilly, trustee. This is a proposed replacement of an existing deck. The representative is BDL Construction Group. This hearing is continued from June 15th, and it is an RDA. Do we have someone? Would you like to come up, please, and give us your name and information for the record? And
Thank you.
of course.
Good evening. I'm
Hi.
Betty O'Reilly, and I'm the one that's requesting to replace the deck.
Okay.
And this is,
Diego Salvador. I work with BDL Construction.
Okay.
And so originally it seems that we had a trouble with the plot plans. The setback, it says that it was over 100 feet or something like that. It's not fresh on my mind now. But once we did the application, I think Dan got back to us and said that it actually was not that much. It's definitely over 50 yards. We're planning to extend the deck only 2 feet towards the wetland. The only disturb that we're gonna have, it's the footings itself, which is gonna come up a couple feet. We have an existing deck, as you guys can see on the pictures. And the other extension that we're gonna do, there's pretty much nothing with the zoning because it's not towards the wet zone. So the deck, the proposed deck, it's gonna be 10 feet instead of the 8 that we have now, by 16 instead of the 12 that we have now.
I'll ask the commissioners first if they have any questions or concerns.
Is the digging going to be done by hand, or is that planned?
Yes, everything is gonna be done manually.
So how far away is it from the wetland?
So the deck itself is over 50 feet away
Okay,
from the wetland. So just a little back history with this one, it was up for another hearing, this was the one that was continued due to the violation. That violation is being brought completely into compliance.
Okay.
She already has a contract with everything.
Yep.
I was there on site, the regrowth is doing great right now. So, and then, I believe it's next month, will be the inspection for the full regrowth, and then if that triggers any restoration or mitigation, then it's gonna go from there. But she has everything lined up for that, and it is outside the 50.
okay,
Even with the expansion, it will still be outside the 50.
okay.
And the expansion itself is just planned to go over grass, so it's no native vegetation that's gonna be removed.
Okay.
And the resource area itself has, even still with the cuttings, has a massive buffer of vegetation between the deck and the water source.
Okay.
Sandy, any? Nothing? Marjorie, any
I'm good.
questions? You're good. Just out of curiosity, there's it's a triple wall pipe for stove connection coming up from the basement. Is the deck going beyond that pipe, or is it going up to it?
So, oh, you're mentioning that pipe?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's gonna be,
Yeah.
I would say like a feet away from it,
So,
towards the inside,
okay.
towards to the slider door.
I was looking at it the other day, and I thought, is this going beyond this pipe?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because they have room on the other side as well.
Right.
So-
And from the drawing that I had, it looked like it was going beyond the pipe, but I couldn't
Yeah.
tell.
No.
Not that it matters to us, I'm just curious. Okay, anybody in the audience that has any questions or concerns, this would be the time. Hearing none, Drew, I'll come back to you, and
No additional comments other than what I've written down, pretty straightforward. Outside the 50-foot, all over previously disturbed area, extremely minor expansion of the existing deck. Meets all the performance standards for inland bank.
all right, and we have a recommendation for a negative determination. So I'll accept a motion if there is one.
Great. I'll make a motion for a negative determination for the RDA for 33 County Road.
Thank you, Alex.
I'll second.
Thank you, Marjorie. Any discussion on the motion that we have? None? I'll call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yeah,
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries. I think we're all set.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Thank you, Dan, for all your help.
Absolutely.
And
Dan, a quick question. When can we start the construction?
You should have a response tomorrow, you're already good to go, so as of next week, pretty much you're good to go.
perfect.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
luck.
You all have a good night.
good luck.
Yep.
It's a lovely home.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I purchased it in September, not knowing all these little things
Oh,
that I had to do,
wow.
but we love it. So, thank you.
You're gonna love it even more once you're done.
I think so.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, moving on. 6:03 hearing, 167 Timber Lane Drive, George K. Regan Jr. This is a proposed septic system upgrade. Representative is Engineering Works Incorporated. It's an RDA. And I believe we have a request for a continuance.
So this has been requested to be continued to August 10th at 6:15 PM.
8:10, 6:15.
And this is to prepare nitrogen loading calculations.
Okay.
And our suggestion of planting that area instead of mulch.
Rather than mulch.
Yeah.
Great.
It's quite a drop-off.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll accept a motion for that continuance, if there is one.
Great. I'll make a motion to continue the RDA for 167 Timber Lane Drive to August 10th at 6:15 PM.
Thank you, Alex. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Eeny, meeny.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Alex?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well, so we'll push that to 8:10, 6:15. Okay, now calling the 6:06 hearing, 108 Captain's Road, Nicholas M., excuse me, and Kathy M. DeGuisto. I hope I pronounced that right.
I think it's DeGusto.
Proposed raise and replace embankment steps and deck, Representative McAllister Marine Construction. And this is, it's an RDA?
Yes, and it has been requested to be continued.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah. It's right there on 810.
Yep, 810 at 612.
Yep.
Did they give a reason on that?
Not available for this meeting. Also, I had added some additional comments to this one. I don't want to get into a deliberation over it, but just FYI to the commission, the existing timber tie pathway down the bank is 8 feet wide, and I recommended that they reduce it to 4 feet to meet current standards. And then the platform that extends from the bottom of the bank and connects to the fixed pier, because it spans over salt marsh, that needs to achieve 50% sunlight penetration over the decking, through the decking. So they agreed to that in correspondence earlier today. So they are aware of that, and we'll have that prepared for the next meeting.
So the steps are going to come in.
Steps will be reduced from 8 to 4.
Okay. Is there a motion for that continuance?
Sure. I'll make a motion to continue the RDA for 108 Captain's Row to August 10th at 6:12 PM.
Thank you, Alex. Second, anyone?
Second?
Thank you, Marjorie. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Alex?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So that will also be continued on August 10th, 6:12. Now calling the 6:09 hearing, 26 Wheeler Road, 26 Wheeler Road LLC. This is proposed removal of 20 infested pitch and white pine trees. Representative is the owner, and this is an RDA. Good evening, sir. If I can have your name and address for the record?
Ronald Gangemi, 26, 20 Wheeler Road, sorry.
Thank you. So could you tell us what you have?
Well, what we got, basically, I had a bunch of trees, big white pines that were down, and Drew went over and checked them out, and we are getting rid of them. And at that time, we noticed a bunch of boar beetles in all the white pines. So he said, take them down and remove the stumps, which I did. And the stumps were pretty big, were probably 20-foot holes. And then I just graded it off and pushed all the roots and some of the top poison ivy into a pile. And then I requested some sand to be put down. And he said, we got to go to IDA, so we're here trying to get some sand down there.
Okay. All right. I'll turn it over to the commissioners first for questions or comments that you might have based on what we have before us.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I mean, Drew, since when do we just allow someone to take down 20 trees and not put anything back?
Well, when there's turpentine beetle infestation and the trees become a hazard as a result, it's always been administrative approval, the subject of administrative approval. There's nothing in the regs that requires somebody to remove trees that become a hazard because of natural conditions.
Right, but why wouldn't they replace it once they do remove it?
It's up to you if you want to have them replace it. I'm just saying there's nothing in the regs that requires it under that circumstance.
So if something dies and somebody removes it, we don't have anything that says they should replace it.
Under this set of circumstances, it's your discretion. I'm just saying historically, when I've been brought out to a property to inspect trees that have been either storm damaged or obviously dead or present a significant risk to pedestrian foot traffic or property, we have provided administrative approval for their removal without the need for mitigation because it's beyond the control of the property owner. It's natural conditions.
Right, but it's natural conditions in a natural area. So then,
It's your discretion if you want to
If it's gonna be
require, but
regraded,
that's-
what is it gonna be?
I'm sorry?
If it's to be regraded, what is the intention? What will be there?
Regrade it and put some sand down for a beach and leaving still keeping the 50-foot buffer. And that's what I'm requesting. If we need some bushes or whatever, then we can do that.
Okay.
I didn't have any intentions of doing it, but that's what you request. I mean, I don't know, you replace white pines that were 50 feet tall. You know,
So we had native trees
Yes,
that were massive,
yes.
and it was a naturally vegetated area, and those trees were providing a function. They were still storing carbon, they were still providing a natural function. They were still habitat, sure, there was an infestation of a non-native beetle. That's an issue, certainly. But then just taking them down and losing a naturally vegetated area, I struggle with that one. The area doesn't still have to be naturally vegetated. You're going from 50-foot trees to sand.
Just going by historically how we've dealt with this particular scenario with infestation.
Okay.
Trees that tall that are infested do present a significant hazard risk to anyone walking through that area or to the existing home.
But so Drew, I have a question on that. Is there any risk of the infestation remaining within the soil? So
No,
that-
because when the stumps were grinded out, that's necessary because
Yeah.
they will still continue to leach pitch out, which attracts the
Okay.
beetles, which is why in that scenario of infestation, we require the stumps to be grounded out to reduce the
Round
risk
up,
of
take it
infestation.
out.
Yes.
So that's not the reason that, because I was just curious, under what circumstances would it be appropriate for you to just give an administrative approval for the sand? Why does he have to? I'm just curious, the history of coming here.
Because I wasn't sure of what the overall scope of the project was when it comes to putting down sand. My primary reason for meeting with Mr. Gangemi on the site was to address risk trees that were clearly
Right.
infested with bark beetle.
Right.
Anything above and beyond that, I said that's the subject of permit review.
Gotcha, okay.
I'm a little worried about if you just put sand down, is that going to just wash into the,
It's
The
pretty
lake.
flat.
and we're pitching
I
it
was
away.
there.
We're pitching it away from the pond.
but I was there, I know, but it seemed to me like a big storm could push some of that down. I'd, like Alex, I would prefer to see some. I don't
Something
mean
with roots.
20 trees put back by,
Sure.
no, or some native vegetation put
Right,
down.
yeah, I hear
maybe
what you're saying.
Closer to the.
I think Mr. Gangemi would be open to that. And that's why I had him come before you with a permit
Yeah.
application, so you could make recommendations as far as what you would like to see out there. But just to explain the infestation portion, that work took place because it was clear evidence.
The
that-
work took place and we feel comfortable, you feel comfortable that putting new vegetation in there, whatever we might hypothetically ask of you as the homeowner, would not be subject to any infestation from the
Yeah.
leftover ground up.
I wouldn't recommend
Roots.
replanting conifers, evergreens.
no.
I would go with some other type of hardwood.
Yeah.
Or shrubs, or a combination of the two.
How about shrubs?
I'm not opposed to that. What is the size area we're dealing with?
I'm sorry?
What is the size of the area?
Well, it's on the plan, it's what, 50 feet probably by 80, 90 feet. It's a very narrow lot. that's in your jurisdiction. And it might be a little less than 50 feet.
That sounds about right. I was on the site as well. You do have that loam pile that's there that was excavated off, right? There were two piles. You said one was from the...
Well, there's a bunch, because what I did, the whole lot, basically what was on that lot before I bought it was an outhouse and a shed, and when I opened the shed, it was filled with rats. So when I removed that and out of your jurisdiction, there's a lot of poison ivy and thorns, so I just stripped all that stuff out. And where the stumps were, there was a bunch of roots, so when I ripped out all the stumps, I had holes. These were big trees, 9, 10 feet. So I backfilled them, and all the roots are just pushed into the loam pile, where the loam pile is basically not clean loam. It's all rooted, poison ivy, and by the time I was done ripping out all the stumps, it was all mixed up.
Yeah.
So I just kind of graded it off. I couldn't just leave bomb holes there, so I just graded. And then after that, I was just trying to clear up the rest of the lot, because I don't want my grandchildren going in the poison ivy and everything. So I'm just trying to make it presentable where I can use it. And, put a picnic table down there and just clean it up for now, and whatever, you guys decide. If we can't have sand, we can't have sand, if I'd like to.
What would be the ultimate use of that pile that's mixed with loam, and
I'm hauling it all out of there.
you intend to just take that away?
Yeah, it's, by the time that stuff breaks down to get anything good, if you notice it was all weeds and garbage in there,
Yeah.
it's better just haul it all away and, bring in good material. It's, by the time you try to screen it and.
Get rid of it.
Costs you, yeah, so it's, I just get rid of it. Unfortunately, after, I was told to stop, I'm just leaving everything till we see what we got. I just want to clean up the lot. If you look at my house next door, what I did outside, I just put organic mulch down, and that keeps everything down, and it makes it look nice. And I had just a poison ivy that was this thick all through of it. And as you've seen, it's getting pretty bad already.
I tiptoed through it.
I got poison ivy on my feet now from yesterday.
Oh, my God.
But, so I just want to, keep it clean, whatever you guys decide, make it into a nice,
Usable area.
yeah, and the trees that are left, they can grow healthy, mostly oaks, have room, get rid of all the thorns and all the poison ivy was climbing up the trees that was, vines that were like 2 inches thick. So, make it presentable, because it looks horrible now. And it was worse before I bought it with all the poison ivy. And the shed, I was shocked when I opened the shed and I seen a bunch of rats, and there was an outhouse there that was there probably for 40 years. So I knocked all that stuff down, but that was, 200 feet back. And, later down the road, it's possible that I will downsize and build a house there and move there when I get a little older, I guess. So I'm not sure. I got a few years left,
No
I think.
comment.
I just look old. I'm really young.
I'm remembering, I wasn't on the commission at the time, but a case of a neighbor. We ended up doing sand, like he's trying to replace it with sand, but putting in a row of Rosa ragusa. Does that sound right? So that the roots were acting as somewhat of a holding.
I think it was probably coastal. It probably wasn't against a pond, it was probably on an
It was over
ocean
on
site.
Papaneset Island, if
It
I
was,
remember right.
no, it actually was in the Papaneset area.
Yeah. I
It was a similar
appreciate,
situation, that's, I just,
Yeah.
and I defer to your superior knowledge on the
no,
different vegetation that would be appropriate.
yeah, and I appreciate you trying to better and make the site usable. I'm not comfortable with 4,500 square feet of native
Yeah.
vegetation being just switched to sand. And just being regraded with a different substance being brought in. Typically, I mean, are conditioning an RDA? Are we comfortable doing that? I'm not sure.
We could require mitigation. You would, either state what you want or leave it up to administrative approval. I was thinking, just in the back of my mind, if it might not be a bad idea to perhaps create a little bit more of a berm between the excavated area and the pond, just to be on the safe side. I mean, the first thing you noticed.
Absolutely.
The first thing I did was I went to the pond and I knelt down and looked across ground level. And it's up a little bit, but it's not up a lot. And
Right.
There's a long slope coming down. If we get a good 5-inch gully washer, it's going to go over that little.
No, I mean, I'm fine with it. I would love to put a berm and put some good plants down there. I mean, I'd like to be, if I'm going to do that, I hope I can design it myself and see what kind of plants you want in there. I mean, I can make it really look nice. It needs something. And what do you, I think you like blueberry plants and stuff like that, or is this something, or if?
If you go by the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension's planting list for native shrubs, is typically what we recommend. Minimum of 3 variety.
Yep,
I think if you come back with just a kind of, planting plan, species list, have the commission take a look at it, how you want to do that, through an RDA, through the existing RDA, and just have this continue to come back with a
Sure.
planting plan and have the commission look at it, review it, kind of like interspersed vegetation. Obviously, I know you want to have some space to recreate, but I think that both can be
Sure.
accommodated. And just
Yep.
put that on a plan. Doesn't have to be a professional engineered stamp plan or anything like that.
well, that's
As long as
good.
it's to scale and we have specific species identified and where they're going to go,
Right.
that would be my recommendation.
Okay, so I just need kind of a list, you're saying Cape Cod Cooperative,
We have a list that we.
and I just go to you and get the list of what we want to plant. Is there a guideline, how many plants you want for a certain square footage, or?
Say maybe half that area that was
Half.
cleared would be
Yeah.
the first
Sounds
half,
right.
Yeah,
Okay.
closer to the pond.
closer to the pond.
Sure,
I think that would
and,
be-
And do we want
Reasonable.
to talk about like a 2-foot berm?
Yeah, and then incorporate a berm at the edge
Sure.
of where the 50-foot
Yep.
setback is. Incorporate that,
Perfect.
plant that up. And then the first half of that 50 to 100 should be planted up.
and, we're putting the plants on, are you saying no sand, or can I make?
Whatever kind of, aggregate is suitable to allow the plants to thrive is really the most important.
And there are
thing.
several that you could.
Well, the
You may
plants
need to
itself
do
is going to
some
be
soil amendments
loomed,
too.
but
Yeah.
the part that don't have the plants, say if I got an area of,
I think if you have a berm, it should be, I don't see any issue with sand in that back half, as long as there's a berm separating.
Yeah, I don't think they're mutually exclusive, are they? What he wants to do, adding the vegetation and the berm.
well, I understand the vegetation and berm, but the flat part after the berm, you're just talking a berm after the 50-foot, a nice berm with some plantings, blueberries, or whatever. And now we got a nice flat stuff after the berm that's not going to have plantings. I'm not going to, you're not wanting to plant a place where we can put a picnic table. What do you want on the ground there? No sand, mulch, organic mulch, or leave it naturally, it's just going to grow garbage?
My initial suggestion was that you've got a berm.
Right,
This is 50 to 100. You've got a berm right at the 50-foot line.
right.
Then half that distance of the 25-foot would be planted up, and then beyond that, sand.
Sand.
Sand?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
That's my recommendation.
compromise.
So you'd have a planted buffer, you'd have a berm, and then you'd have a sand area, and the 75 to 100-foot setback to recreate, if that's acceptable to
Okay.
the commission.
Just, I want to make sure I do it right, or we could talk about it later. So 50 feet out, put a berm. After that, and plant on the berm. And then plant past the berm towards the street, another
25.
25, and then I can do some sand. So basically, we're 75 feet where I can put a little picnic area.
Correct.
But with the berm, I'm going to make a berm, and I'm putting the plants in, and where all the plants are, what am I going to put? Am I going to put mulch down to keep the weeds down, or?
Yeah, that would be the standard.
So I
You
can
wanna
do some,
have, prepare the area to allow the plantings to
Right.
grow and not get inundated with weeds. We
Yeah.
can go over all of the
Okay.
requirements there that would ensure successful
Okay.
thriving of mitigation plantings.
sure,
So I can go over all of that with you in detail.
pretty simple. Okay. So it's best just to meet with you next week or the week after, whatever. Okay.
When would we be continuing this to?
So this could be for August 10th at
we have room?
6:18 PM.
Is that, how many is that? How many is that?
That is a 7.
All right, so 8, 10.
What are you saying, August 10th, the next meeting?
Yes, August 10th.
I might
Unless-
need a little more time. Unfortunately, I got my grandkids coming for 2 weeks, so I'm going to goof off.
Unfortunately.
Say
August 24th.
I think we should
Fortunately.
encourage
Yeah.
that, don't we encourage?
Yeah, I just,
August 24th at 6:03 PM.
okay.
Have the minutes reflect that he's choosing his grandchildren, and we all say that's a good idea.
6:23?
6:03,
03.
August 24th.
Yep.
Great.
Okay, hold on. So I would accept a motion then for continuance until August 24th at 6:03 PM to give the applicant time to draw up this plan for mitigating the area.
Can I just say so moved?
Yes,
So moved.
thank you. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Any
Was
other
it my turn?
comments? No other comments before I call? None? Okay, Alex,
Yes.
Marjorie,
Yes.
Sandy.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries. So we'll see you on the 24th.
Great.
Bring your plan along, consult.
I'll have a
with
plan
the
all
staff.
set for you. I'll consult before then and have it all ready.
Great.
I appreciate your time, and
Thank
see you then.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're really good at continuing things.
Yeah.
Yikes.
All right.
All right, hold on.
Yeah, we got the continuation thing down. We got it.
God.
Okay, I'm now going to call the 6:12 hearing for 0 Gooseberry Island and 0 Punkhorn Point Road. Matthew Haney, trustee, Gooseberry Island Trust and SN Trust. This is a proposed wetland jurisdiction determination, representative law offices of Paul Revere III. It's a request for a determination of applicability.
Paul, can you hear us?
I've got my phone here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay.
Okay,
Little
you're,
delay there.
yeah.
And I will try to keep going. We'll see how. I didn't realize it was going to be the double directional Zoom, or I probably would have come down. In any event, my name is Paul Revere. I represent Matthew Haney, who is trustee of the Gooseberry Island Trust. It's a kind of unusual RDA. That is, the Wetlands Protection Act provides that the Wetlands Protection Act shall not apply, quote, shall not apply to any project authorized by special act prior to January 1st, 1973. Okay? The way to find out whether you fall within this exemption is to file an RDA. We have that both from DEP asking us to file an RDA with you, and also there is a case, in Ray James Knott, which involved a similar exemption under the Rivers Protection Act, where they filed an RDA to see whether work in a historic mill complex was exempt due to an exemption in the Act. So, in any event, a little background you've got, I can see on the screen. Thank you, Drew. We're talking about Gooseberry Island. It's a small island at the end of Punkhorn Point Road. It's owned by Matthew Haney, Gooseberry Island Trust. I'll refer to that as GIT from now on. And the mainland, right at the end of Punkhorn Point Road, there's an area between mean high water and mean low water that is owned by something called the SN Trust. Okay? The timeline related to this, and you're seeing the plan there now, is in 1908, Section 1 of Chapter 134 of the Acts of 1908 authorized a bridge to Gooseberry. In 1909, a license was issued, license 3425, for the bridge to Gooseberry Island, meeting the requirements of the special act to get a license. Quite interestingly, this license covered 3 bridges. One was across the Mashpee River that was never built. It also included the bridge that goes to Pomponetset Island, which I'm sure you all know, living in Mashpee. This is one of 3 bridges authorized. From 1905 to 1959, the island was owned by Tinsdale and then later by Fields Point Manufacturing, another iconic part of Mashpee. In 1955, the Sturr/Nelson family purchased the property. They owned it until 2011, okay, at which point the Gooseberry Island Trust bought it. Now, I want to give you a little history of the permitting here because it's going to give you a little background as to why we're here, because this is a kind of unusual request. When Mr. Haney obtained Gooseberry Island, he applied immediately, or shortly thereafter, 2013, for variances to the Zoning Board of Appeals to build a home on the island without a bridge. We'll get there by boat, helicopter, however, come in. The ZBA denied variances to build on the island. In 2014, Mr. Haney, through these trusts, filed a notice of intent for Wooden Bridge with you, the Mashpee Conservation Commission. After he filed it, the town actually went to challenge Mr. Haney's title to the SN Trust mainland parcel in land court. As this was proceeding, and it's a procedural issue that some of you may be aware of, the public hearing was closed, but no order of conditions was issued by the Mashpee Conservation Commission. So the trust appealed to DEP. Then the Conservation Commission, about a week later, issued a denial order of conditions for a wooden bridge. And that is exactly what you're looking at here, the wooden bridge. And I should say, so that's what's here sitting in front of you. Excuse me. The DEP then looked at this project for the wooden bridge, and they said they again issued a denial superseding order of conditions. And the reason was because there were too many piles in the salt marsh. Then the trust asked for an adjudicatory hearing. During the adjudicatory hearing, the trust met with DEP, and they came up with a plan to build a steel bridge. Mr. Haney always calls me the abomination because it's ugly, but it's a steel bridge. But because it's steel, it pulls a number of piles out of Pomponetset Bay and out of the salt marsh, spanning this fairly short distance between Gooseberry Island and the mainland. They then submitted these plans in the administrative hearing. In 2017, the administrative judge ruled in the trust's favor that the Mashpee Concom failed to act timely on the application, but it said he couldn't approve the steel bridge because of something called the plan changes policy, which is a policy that says basically the town's got to look at the steel bridge first. You can't just do it at the DEP level. After that happened, that matter continued in Superior Court and ultimately to the appeals court, which I'll get to later. In 2018, Mr. Haney said, you know, I'm spending a lot of money on consultants. I should just apply to the ZBA and say, look, will you let me build a house if I get a bridge built? And he was again denied by the ZBA in 2018. In 2019, the land court ruled Mr. Haney owned the mainland. In the following couple years, the selectmen asked the town manager to Gooseberry Island if they'd like to sell the property to the town. Gooseberry Island Trust declined. The selectmen put an article in town meeting in 2020 to buy the island. The finance committee did not recommend it. And the town meeting voted indefinitely to postpone the taking of Gooseberry Island by eminent domain. In 2021, the DEP's decision relating to the steel bridge substitution was upheld. And the Conservation Department applied to the Community Preservation Committee to, again, attempt to buy Gooseberry Island by eminent domain. Their appraisal was done, and then apparently, based on the appraisal, it was decided it was a little too expensive. In 2021, and this is now getting really to why we're there, Gooseberry Island Trust filed what I'll call a regulatory takings case against the town of Mashpee. And the essence of that case was, look, the Zoning Board of Appeals is not going to issue us any permits. We've tried with a bridge, without a bridge, and they've denied it. Now, the concept of regulatory taking is essentially, let's start out. The concept of a taking in eminent domain is something like when the town wants to build a roadway or the state a highway, they take the ownership of the land from the private landowner, and according to the Constitution, have to compensate them. There's nothing wrong with taking land. It's only, the Constitution only requires that if you take land, you have to pay the landowner. Okay? In this matter, we're talking about something called a regulatory taking. And that is basically, it was recognized first by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes that at some point, property could be regulated to such an extent that even though there was not a physical invasion, taking of the property completely for the public's use, like building a highway, it was essentially turning the property into a public, a piece of public property. And, you know, our position has always been that essentially Gooseberry Island has been put into conservation land, but nobody's paid my client for it. We don't have to argue that point. As it's said in a case called Lucas v. South Carolina Conservation, the Coastal Commission, quote, when an owner of real property has been called upon to sacrifice all economically beneficial uses in the name of the common good, that is to leave his property economically idle, he has suffered a taking. Okay? So the question becomes whether, in a taking, what is left economically idle? Well, before you can bring a takings action, okay, you have to convince the court that your matter is what they call ripe for adjudication, meaning you've applied for permits, you've denied the permits, and you can't get the permits to do something with the property because of the regulation. Well, the ZBA took that position in the federal litigation against the ZBA and the town that my client, the Gooseberry Island Trust, had not pursued every avenue to see if he could get to the island through permitting. And the federal district court in early 2002 accepted the town's reasoning. That is, they said the matter was not right because Mr. Haney had various other avenues before conservation to pursue a bridge, and that perhaps if one of those avenues resulted in a permit being issued, then the ZBA would have before it an island which could be accessed to decide whether to grant a variance or not. In 2003, the First Circuit Court of Appeals, which covers Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and quite entertainingly, and nothing negative meant by that, but also Puerto Rico, upheld the district court's opinion. Mr. Haney right now is actually signed an agreement with the Pacific Legal Foundation and will be attempting to take that case to the U.S. Supreme Court. Okay? But in our situation, we need to resolve all of the various avenues in terms of trying to permit a bridge to get to the island so that there's not a rightness issue. And one of these avenues is the exemption. We brought up this issue to DEP in 2021, and I have the letter here, but they said you need to file, as they said before, a request for determination of applicability with the Conservation Commission. Okay? As I see it, my clients have a project. The project was a bridge to Gooseberry Island. It was authorized by a special act prior to, excuse me, prior to January 1st, 1973, and therefore this board can issue a negative determination on this matter. I think that really covers the essence of it. It is quite a bit of an odd duck compared to what you're usually used to. But we've been advised by DEP, the case law is there, that if you believe you have a project that is exempt, you apply through an RDA. There are also, as you might know, exemptions for agricultural uses. And that's another thing that you apply for an RDA. We note that we only ask for a decision under the Wetlands Protection Act for a couple reasons. The first reason is basically under the Mashpee bylaw, there is no exemption like this. And secondarily, we believe because your predecessors long ago, 2014, actually early 2015, it actually happened, it failed to act in a timely basis, that Mashpee does not have authority to apply the bylaw. Not here to debate those issues today with you. I don't expect you to, or not. I expect you to issue what decision you feel is appropriate under the circumstances. But I just merely note we simply requested this under the Wetlands Protection Act, not under the local bylaw. Thank you, members of the commission.
Thank you. Okay. Let me go to commissioners first for any questions or comments that you may have based on the presentation.
Has Mr. Revere been given council's feedback, a copy of it?
No.
Okay.
So I have a question. There are many questions. Isn't this the most Byzantine, sort of bizarre configuration from 1905?
8.
1908?
Yes.
I was just getting out of high school. No, I find it fascinating, though, but what I didn't hear is, I'm assuming that the foundation, the trust, wants to have us go back and pretend all the other stuff is sort of set aside, but what we're looking at is the last action that was taken, and can the Conservation Commission today actually issue a negative determination in order to allow them to proceed with both the building of the home and the building of the bridge. Have I got that pretty much?
I think it's just bridge. There's no
Just
home.
the bridge, so
Yeah.
forget the home. And the bridge would be hypothetically funded by whom?
By the applicant.
By the applicant. So by the foundation, by the,
SM Trust,
Whoever,
Gooseberry
right.
Island Trust.
and so does that or does that not have any impact upon designating Gooseberry Island as a public access or a public position, a public island?
No, it's entirely private.
It'll all be private just
It'll
by the
be-
foundation, which is what it's always been, I thought.
Always
though.
has been privately. owned,
Always has.
correct. Yeah.
And is there any stipulation, I heard so much about the steel and the wood and all of that. Is it within the purview of the Conservation Commission to bear or impart some opinion as to which material is better or not for, if we were to approve this?
I think, well, just to reiterate what the purpose of this application is, they, by virtue of submitting this request for determination of applicability, are claiming that the bridge is exempt from Conservation Commission review entirely
Because of the last
because
determination.
of this special
that's made.
legislation that the attorney went over
Right.
previously. That's what's being asked of the commission. If you issue a negative determination, you are agreeing with the attorney's assertion that the Wetlands Protection Act, that this project is exempt from the Wetlands Protection Act. A positive determination tells the applicant that it requires the submission of a notice of intent because it's within wetlands jurisdiction, and you don't agree with the exemption. And we do have town council opinion on that matter in your notes.
And the packet, okay.
Correct.
But just to be clear, thank you for that elucidation.
Sure.
That sort of clears up a little bit my confusion. On the original decision that it was not exempt,
But required a filing, correct.
requiring,
Yes.
is the opinion of legal counsel, does that cover every issue that you had a concern about?
I can only say that I agree with town council's
Okay.
opinion, and I'll just leave it at that.
I think probably the wooden bridge had more pilings. With the steel, they could put in less pilings.
Yeah.
So they changed it to be less impactful to the salt marsh.
Yeah.
But because they had changed it too far, it deviated too far from the initial application.
Yeah.
That they had to redo it all. So that's why 10 years ago is kind of void,
Right.
and that's why we're here.
Yeah, the state has basically said that this redesign for a steel span bridge exceeds their threshold of review for plan changes at the state level when this was being appealed. So they took it to the highest level of appeal in the state of Massachusetts. And the decision was that it gets remanded back to the Conservation Commission, either through this current RDA or through a notice of intent, depending on the outcome of your vote this evening.
This is fascinating, is it not?
Okay,
To it.
Okay, Alex, the floor
I
is
just
yours.
can we just read to Paul what council said so he can hear it?
I would recommend
Do you want me to read it in?
Yep, sure.
Okay, so, town council advised us that the authorization to build the bridges granted by the general court in the special act was specific to Mr. Tyndale, his associates and assigns, absent some written recorded agreement or instrument whereby said authorization was expressly assigned to another individual or entity. Such a right in real property could not be legally assigned to another. Such an authorization would not be transferred or assigned to a successor title holder merely by transfer of title to the Gooseberry Island property. They see no evidence of any such assignment in the record of documents that have been reviewed by the town. It is the opinion of town council that any proposal to build a bridge from the mainland to Gooseberry Island would be subject to current applicable statutes, including the Wetland Protections Act, regulations and bylaws relative to such a project. Could he hear me?
Did you hear that, Paul?
Yes, I am familiar with that response, and I have a very legalistic response based on Supreme Judicial Court cases that would basically say that's bunk, but don't expect the Conservation Commission wants to hear that, nor can they make that decision on their own. So I'm not going to even take the time to bring up that discussion. And I think there was one mistake in something you said. We actually didn't reach the highest court in Massachusetts because there is the Supreme Judicial Court, but we didn't ask to appeal to them. So we made the second highest court.
Second, sorry.
But other than that,
Yeah, sure.
there's nothing you said that I disagreed with in your summary.
Okay, so.
Okay.
So do we all have a copy of that? Apparently not.
It was emailed to us, but it's also in the, it's
also in your-
in
it's
the
in your-
comments. It's like the
It's in the
second to
packet.
last paragraph.
I just felt like I didn't have the degree
Yeah,
of
it's-
detail. Okay,
It's on the all comment sheet.
it's on, yeah.
Sandy, anything you would like to add?
No.
No? Nor do I have anything to add. In my view, it's pretty straightforward. Let me go out to the audience for questions or comments that they may have. Is there anyone that would like to question or comment? Hearing none. Drew, I'll come back to you if there's anything else you want to add to this.
Nothing more. My recommendation is to go with town council's feedback and opinion on this application, and that he recommends, and I do as well, a determination of a positive determination for this application, thereby requiring the applicant to submit a notice of intent for a steel span bridge to Gooseberry Island.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right, with all of that in mind, I will ask for a motion
Sure.
on the request.
So I'll make a motion for positive determination for the request for determination of applicability for 0 Gooseberry Island and 0 Pronghorn Road.
Thank you,
Second.
Alex.
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Any further discussion on the motion that we now have?
It seems as though this is the only really legal position the Conservation Commission can take.
Yeah.
Particularly, in today's world, and town council, and I think your recommendation, solid, said the former legislator,
Okay, then,
with great respect for the great and general court.
I'll call for the vote. Alex?
Yes.
Thank you. Marjorie?
Yes,
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well, motion carries. For a positive determination requiring the filing of a notice of intent. Thank you.
so now that that's over, can I ask a question? I think this would go best to you.
Thank you, Paul.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you catch
Okay.
that, Paul? Yeah, they voted for a positive determination. Yeah.
No, I just thought, well, I was about to thank the commission, but I thought maybe one of their members had some question for you or me about the matter, so it's waiting for that, that's
Well, it
all.
might be of interest to you. I just had a question about process and procedure, then they'll come back with another application.
I'm not sure what path they're going to take from this point. It's really kind of up to them, whether they
Yeah,
want to.
there are multiple
But-
paths,
but
and
There-
there
there
are
leaving the door open.
issues related to this, and we're going to decide what to do. But
Gotcha.
basically, this was one of the boxes we needed to check off in terms of certain things, and we have ability to bring questions, appeal this to DEP, and that may end up get bundled with our variance request with DEP. That's all. Or we may be back with a steel bridge. The future will tell. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much, members of the commission.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you for the history lesson.
You're welcome.
Was different.
Long.
It was.
Required a lot of explanation. Do you want me to turn on the lights?
It's getting a little dark. I have a flashlight.
I like it dark.
I have a flashlight here. so-
No, I'm good. It's fine.
Yeah, illuminate us. Let me just,
Yeah, what happened?
thanks, Drew, I can actually see what's going on here now.
Just so God was looking down and saying she didn't like that. Oh,
Okay, I'm going to now call the 6:15 hearing for 352 Mashpee Neck Road, Timothy W. Leadham trustee. This is a proposed gravel parking area, relocation of a shed, landscaping, and mitigation plantings. The representative is Cape and Islands Engineering, and this hearing is a notice of intent file number, DEP file number 433233. This hearing is continued from April 20th, May 4th, June 15th, and June 29th, all of 2023. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Mark Dibb with Cape and Islands Engineering. I also have Nick Crawford from Crawford Land Management, as well as Tim Leadham on behalf of the owner, or is the owner. Tonight, we are presenting the notice of intent for 352 Mashpee Neck Road and 21 Frog Pond Close. As noticed in the introduction, the project consists of a proposed gravel parking area that's to be used as overflow parking for the marina. We also have an access driveway that will provide access from 21 Frog Pond, which is the existing marina, over to the other property at 352 Mashpee Neck. And I can get a little more into the proposal. There's some fencing, vegetative screening, restoration, and mitigation. I do want to just give a little background as to the continuances that have happened before we opened. When we first filed, at Drew's request, we then went to ZBA because the property that this parking lot is being proposed on required a special permit. It's an allowed special permit use in a residential district for parking lot associated with the marina. So we went through that process, which included zoning board of appeals special permit, included site plan review, and also included an engineering peer review of the site and drainage. And we did get granted a special permit for this use for the property. That is when, those were the reasons for the continuances. And then we also, after ZBA, you'll notice there's a couple mitigation areas on 21 Frog Pond Close, as well as that access driveway touches a little bit of the second parcel. So what we did, as well as we re-notified abutters, including both parcels. We did provide a updated narrative that included some of the changes that happened through the ZBA process, and also did provide, we restaked anything that changed as a result of the procedures that went through ZBA. I'm going to go back to the project itself a little bit. So the existing properties are at 352 Mashpee Neck and 21 Frog Pond. On site, on the coastal side, there's the resource areas consist of land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There is an area of salt marsh, and there is also an area of bordering vegetated wetland. And then up from that, there's a coastal bank, a main coastal bank that runs along the water side. And then the bank does turn and run in between the two lots based on elevation, slope, and the floodplain area, as well as the buffer zones associated with those resource areas. So the details of the proposal consists mainly of the proposed parking lot. It's going to have available 32 parking spaces. There is also going to be a fence around a portion of that, and what that fence is going to do is provide access from Mashpee Neck for the users of the dwelling, which will remain in use as a dwelling for family members of the marina or potentially even employees of the marina, as well as a small office space in that facility. So then the overflow parking area, which is the main portion of that parking, will be accessed from that driveway between the two lots. So that fence, that orange line that you see in between the building and Mashpee Neck, is that fence that kind of organizes traffic and requires the users of the overflow parking to come in off of the 21 Frog Pond accessway. Other components of this project are there are 3 bioretention drainage areas that are proposed, have been reviewed by an engineering peer review for the town. There is also was during this process a lighting plan, a full cutoff, dark sky compliant lighting plan that was approved, as well as there is also a stairway access from the lower level marina area up to for people getting out of their cars and parking and getting down to the boat area. The changes to the dwelling with the incorporation of a small office use for, again, only the marina use. There's no There's no social gathering areas or anything like that. It's just a small office component. And the dwelling, that change of use triggered an IA requirement for the septic system. So the septic tank will be retrofitted or removed and replaced with an IA septic component to the project. That in general describes the proposal tonight. We do feel that with the mitigation and restoration plantings that Nick Crawford will go through in detail on their plans, and the improvements for the property, we feel it meets the requirements of the client, as well as does provide a net environmental benefit to the parcel. And we believe it is worthy of a notice of intent. I'm going to give it over to Nick Crawford to just review some of his plans that were also submitted as part of the proposal.
Good evening, Nick Crawford from Crawford Land Management. I'll just give a brief overview. We submitted two plans. One was the site vegetation plan, and the other was the restoration plan. So I'll just kind of hit the highlights since Mark described most of the rest of the project. There's a total of 50 square feet of mitigation that's required for the project, which we do provide. In addition to that, there's another 8,280 square feet of basically voluntary restoration work across the property. The rain gardens themselves add up to about 990 square feet, and those will all be planted with native species as well. The site does possess a isolated stand of Phragmites along the water right where the two properties meet that will be managed and eradicated as part of this proposal. In all, everything combined, the project adds an additional, or I shouldn't say adds, so there is some tree removal proposed for the site improvements, and we've proposed 1-to-1 mitigation for all the native trees that would be removed that are over 6 inches, and 3-to-1 mitigation for all the trees that were under 6 inches and either non-native or invasive. That total comes to, we are adding 34 new trees to the site within conservation jurisdiction, between the restoration areas and the mitigation areas. Between the two, we're also adding 398 woody shrubs, and the rain garden areas will be planted with 3,200 native plugs of perennial species, grasses, and forbs. As part of the proposal, and as usually required, we would submit annual monitoring reports detailing the work that was completed, work that's to be anticipated, anything that may or may not go according to plan. And that is more or less it in a nutshell. I think that the proposed plans, as shown, would definitely leave the site in a much better condition than it currently is. As the coastal bank that's facing the existing marina lot is dominated with, oriental bittersweet and other invasive species. And I'll kind of leave it at that. There is a small view corridor proposed from the office in the dwelling, and that's for a marina employee to be able to have an open view, a relatively open view of the marina itself for safety purposes. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll go to the commissioners first for questions or comments that you may have.
Yeah, I just have a question. The existing lawn area, that's to remain lawn, that's within the 50-foot buffer. Is there a reason why some of the mitigation plantings are further away from the resource area and that the lawn area is not filled in?
The lawn area is being reduced, but not completely eliminated. The lawn is there existing today, and we would like to retain some of it as usable space down there.
Yeah, so typically we like to see the mitigation plantings closest to the resource area.
I mean, the majority of all mitigation plantings, whether they be trees or shrubs, are on the coastal bank in the resource area itself. Which is, so I would just say that, you know, we would like to retain a small lawn area. It's not very big, it is being reduced, and the majority of the plantings are in the resource area, as opposed to the buffer.
Is the way that the site is now, I can't visualize on site where it would be, but, so the area of plantings that is mitigation plantings that are up closer to the building, can that be swapped where those plantings are down with it filling the 50-foot buffer and then the grass area is closer to the building?
So I think that the topography of the site is limiting in that fact, because there's the area that's being kept down below is flat. The area that's being replanted is a slope. So to
I see.
switch them wouldn't leave any usable space.
And how does the applicant envision that space being used?
It's mostly just to get to the other path. There might be limited just, walking area type uses.
Picnic table.
Yeah, very minimal. Again, they're not going to have weddings or functions like that. It might be just for some office personnel or minimal use, just to keep a little open space. Might be amenable to reducing it some, but, like Nick said, we were trying to enhance the bank itself and other areas as well.
Anything else? No? Marjorie? Questions that you might
I
have?
think I'm good.
You all set? Sandy? I'm going to go to the parking lot itself, Mark. I know during the ZBA hearings, there was a lot of conversation about storage of boats in the parking lot. Some of the people that were there were concerned about tiering the boats, that type of stuff, and that was pretty much all worked out. One of the things that caught my ear was the possibility of a boat that's being stored there for the winter having some type of an accident, a leakage, maybe out of a lower end unit or whatever. Accidents are accidents. You don't plan on them, they just happen. What type of mitigation are you proposing to deal with something like that in the event that there was an accident? Winter storm comes and blows a boat over, or whatever, and we have a spill.
During those ZBA presentations, I'm not a boat expert, but, boats have their own tanks, as well as the boat itself is a secondary containment. As far as during the discussions, a boat leak from something like that is extremely rare. They're really, and actually boats are, another part of the commentary was, do you empty the boat, the fuel of the boats, and actually empty tanks create vapors and gases, so they actually keep some fuel in them on purpose to actually cause less issues. There is no particular control. There is, I believe, there was a spill kit condition, that it's required to be on site, a spill kit to clean up a problem. Beyond that, they're really, there's just, these boats have fail-safes, basically. And from a stationary boat those types of accidents don't typically happen.
Mr. Leadham?
He can let,
Hi there. Name is Tim Leadham.
Yeah, please come up to the microphone so we can hear.
Name is Tim Leadham. I'm the property owner. Just add just a little bit to what Mark said, and it falls back and ties into the ZBA approval for the project and one of the conditions that they put on it. And one of the conditions was that there's no mechanical work done on this site. What we have here is there's another condition that the boats in storage are going to be the boats that are only members of the marina. So what you have is you'd have a boat who's a member of the marina, and the boat's in use, so it's not a boat that's derelict somewhere, it's not a boat out of service, it's not a boat that's having an emergency, it's not a boat having a problem. It's coming out of the water, it's being worked on elsewhere, being winterized. That's the process at which time anything that was a condition or anything wrong with the boat would be observed and would be discovered. So that is really put to bed by the time the boat would be put into storage at this site. So no one can say absolutely nothing is ever possible in any instance, but everything that is, from a statistical standpoint, extremely rare that something could occur after going through all those processes, knowing where the boat came from, the boat was already sound, the boat was in good condition, the boat was serviced somewhere else, everything is made ready for the winter, and then the boat is put there. So about everything that can possibly be done to avoid a situation is being done.
Right. So the boat is actually taken off the site, serviced, winterized, and then brought back to the site for storage in this upper lot? Is that?
Yes, some basic winterization occurs on the lower lot, that always has. That's been in service since back to like the 1950s, but no major mechanical work, no major repairs. I eliminated that when I bought the property some 22 years ago, and anything that's major, anything that's significant in nature goes somewhere else. And in this instance, the ones coming to this property, they're only the smaller ones, they're only in the marina. It's only basic services done somewhere else and then put in for storage. And then also has a very restrictive time frame too. They can't be there prior to September 1st, and they have to be off the site prior to June 1st. It makes it a little bit tough because some people want to delay putting their boats in, but it is what it is. That was part of the ZBA approval on the property.
So will any boats be left in this upper lot during the summer months at all? No.
No.
And that's just for spillover parking?
Yes.
Which could even be a bigger risk of, you don't know whose car is coming in and what's leaking out. I'm just concerned about hydrocarbons getting into this gravel lot, and what do we do in an event that does happen? And my primary concern was the winter storage of boats, but I know also that cars come and go, and you could have people coming in and you don't know if their car is sound or not, and it's leaking transmission fluid or oil or who knows what, antifreeze, it could be anything. What is the proposed mitigation for a potential leak in that gravel parking lot, either from a boat or a car? I didn't hear anything to address that, and it's a concern that I have.
Is there something that the commission is looking for? Is there something other than us being prudent and looking and observing what's going on and being aware of what our customers have for vehicles? The vehicles that tend to come on the property are newer.
Right.
They're in good repair. It's, everything related to water access and everything related to boating, unfortunately for everyone, has gotten more expensive. Sure. And I've observed that as part of the process. Like, for instance, when we bought this property, there were derelict boats on the property, on the lower lot. There were derelict work vehicles. There was just a pretty sad state of things and the way it was treated. During that process of us cleaning it up, we eliminated all of that. And during the process, as regulations become tighter in all regards, as tax burdens become everything, unfortunately, boating has become more expensive. And the profile of the people that are coming in with the vehicles are, we don't have just come down to the marina and see what kind of vehicles are there.
Do you want to mention
But could too,
amount of days?
Board of Health does have pretty strict protocols when it comes to fuel spills.
Yeah.
As far as response.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think it's kind of an episode that's unpredictable, obviously.
Sure.
But systemic, I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners before I go out to members of the public?
I just have one more question. The way the paths are on the property, you have one path going down to the salt marsh and the other path going, where exactly does the other path go to? The one to the right,
This one?
yeah.
This one, right? It's an existing path. It currently is the way to get from the existing marina over and up to the house.
Okay, so how do you envision it functioning once all of these changes take place? Is there a need for both path, for the path going down to the salt marsh directly from the house down?
She's asking about this path right here.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Sure, yeah. Is there a need for both paths? Do you need the
This
path
one
going
and
to the
this
salt marsh from the house?
Part of having the office for the marina at this distance away, the entrance to all of the access is right there, very near where the existing path is.
Okay.
And I would be very hesitant to give up a very quick, if someone falls in the water and,
Sure.
they need to be rescued, you need to throw them a life jacket. Right now, you can run right down the hill, run across the path, and that's a lot easier to navigate and a lot quicker and safer than navigating stairs where there could be customers going up downstairs from the parking lot.
When you're saying this, are you saying the path, are you speaking about this path or this path?
The existing path down near the waterfront allows for staff to have very, very quick access between the properties. The new stairway proposed is to make a straight line between the lower parking area and providing the upper parking to come there, and also direct access to the office, which is directly in line, and the door to that office is directly in line with that stairway.
Yes. So do you need this path and this path?
I was just saying, the staircase is a staircase.
Yeah.
The lower path is something which is existing and provides the staff very, very quick access and quick immediate
So what does
use.
this path do?
Now she's asking about this one.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the
Yeah.
one
No.
connecting.
Yeah.
Yep, at first she was, now she's
Yeah.
talking.
There's an existing path that the prior owners have maintained as long as I've been around, and I was a
Yeah.
member of the marina since 1985 before owning it. That's just their access getting down to the waterfront.
Do we need a footpath going to a salt marsh? That's my question. Is that a fair question?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
I mean, I don't want people on the salt marsh.
No, and we
So-
don't either. There was one observation, one of the agent, is it Dan, I think? Yeah. He observed, he asked me a question when he came out, what are those boards and what's that trash and all that stuff? A lot of stuff washes in up there.
Yeah.
On, that lower area. And we have used that. We just used it this spring to go down there and do an extensive cleanup for stuff that has been washing up all winter and all spring. That's really the only use that it's had on our part, but it's nice to have it there.
Right. I just don't want people putting in kayaks.
Oh,
or,
no.
Like
We-
bringing things down that way to then be
Could put
cutting across the salt
A
marsh.
sign to that effect maybe would be.
Be happy to,
helpful.
because we also don't allow any kayak launching and canoe launch.
Right.
We're concerned with safety aspects of people launching. We don't want anyone walking down the boat ramp at the lower marina. It
Right.
gets slippery. We don't want them putting something in over a wall. We don't want people sliding things in off the docks. We turned over the moorings to the town that we used to have out there where that was going on. And we certainly don't want people using that as a waterway access. We have no problem with that whatsoever.
Okay.
set. Let me go out to the public. If there's anybody at the meeting here that has a question or a comment, this would be the time. Yes, would you like to come up, please? And if I can have your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Mary Fox. I live at 63 Frog Pond Close, Mashpee. I have a question. I live on Frog Pond Close, and I've been there for over 25 years. When the previous owner owned the marina, it was much smaller, and we had a very adequate screening of native and sustainable trees and bushes and shrubs. So you could see the marina, but it was very well screened. Now, today, it's, and we did have a productive discussion with Drew on this, my husband and I on the phone. Now, if you walk along the marina entrance, the entire marina property, all of those trees and shrubs are gone. And as the marina expanded up from 70-something to 150, they were taken down, and now the boats and cars are pushed right up against that marina along the entire, not just the entrance, the entire Frog Pond Close Road. Right across, the road is narrow, it's a narrow road there, and it drops there, but right across the road, which is something that hasn't been addressed here, is a frog pond with conservation land. And there's quite a bit of traffic in and out of there now with turning at that entrance right across from the frog pond and the conservation land. So that's another concern. The other concern is I don't see anything on these plans that really addressed any of the screening along Frog Pond Close. I see everything indicated that's going to go up along Mashpee Neck Road. Now, we were told, and I was actually told a while ago from the owner, that there was going to it was going to be landscaped, but nothing has been done. So I'm kind of concerned for our neighborhood and for the Frog Pond and conservation land across the way that this has all been torn down. And I'd like to see a plan that represents what is going to really happen along Frog Pond Close to have it return to its previous landscape, where we could see, we had a good buffer from the road. Now we can see the full marina, we can see the cars right up against the embankment, the boats right against the embankment. And I think if there is going to be screening, how are those tall bushes and trees going to really take hold if everything is pushed up against the embankment? So what I'm asking for is if there's possibility that we can see a plan that's going to protect Frog Pond Close, give us some screening that we had before as promised, and also protect the frog pond that's, I don't know how far away, 100 feet, it's a narrow road there. Protect the frog pond, protect all that conservation land along the entire property of the marina. That is all totally exposed now compared to what it looked like 20 years ago. So that's my concern, and I was hoping that someone here could review briefly the screening part of the plans for Frog Pond Close, not only Mashpee Neck Road, because of, these concerns, and I'm hoping there'll be adequate screening in the future to protect the conservation land and protect the environment, and also to give us some screening for the people that live on the road.
And the screening that you're mentioning is on the south side?
It's right on Frog Pond Close Road. This is where
Opposite
all
the
the
frog
boats come in and out now, and all the cars come in and boat. This is where the entrance is. around the corner from Mashpee Neck.
Drew, is there any way you can designate the area that she's talking about?
Yeah, I couldn't
With your
see, I couldn't
arrow?
really follow the plan, so I don't see, I didn't hear in the discussion of the presentation anything that addressed Frog Pond Close
So
at
you've
all.
got,
And maybe I'm missing something, but I don't.
You've got two areas here that are identified, restore 1,360 square feet of road shoulder after 2 foot clear from edge of parking in this green highlighted area here, which is Coastal Bank. On the opposite side of the entrance, restore cleared areas between trees with 620 square feet of mitigation. So this is the area that Mrs. Fox is talking about, these two, effectively road shoulder / coastal bank. They're coastal bank by slope definition only. They're not an eroding sediment source to replenish any other coastal resource areas. But nonetheless, they are jurisdictional. So
And
they are proposed to be restored.
I think on this plan, the 50-foot line, it's the lime green line.
Yep.
And then there's a 100-foot one, those are to the Frog Pond.
Yep.
So it's showing you the distance.
Yep. So this is the 50-foot offset from the wetland associated with Frog Pond, and this is the 100-foot right here.
I mean,
And that note up there, Drew, to restore the cleared area between the trees with so many
So
mitigation.
What I would suggest is that I work with Mr. Leadham's staff to make sure that adequate screening is part of the mitigation plan.
Yeah.
And I think that should satisfy your concerns.
Okay, I think
Yeah,
my,
looks like you can do that.
yeah, I think my concern is now that the boats and cars are so close to the embankment, that what really is going to route there to give us tall screening like we had before? We had, not all tall screening, but we had trees there, and we had big bushes. And
There are-
I'm just
there are
hoping they're
ways.
sustainable and they're native, and they're also going to give some buffer to the Frog Pond, which is how far across? Not that far, the conservation land.
Not that far.
Yeah, not that far at all. So I kind of feel that, in seeing this proposal, that it's missing a lot to protect this and protect the street.
We can certainly work with the
Yeah.
applicant to address those
Okay,
concerns.
thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to comment or question? It's hard to see beyond that sign
No one
there.
else.
Okay, Drew, I'll come back to you for any closing comments that you might have.
Nothing more to add. I think the explanation on the concern about fuel spill is adequately addressed. And I don't have any other comments. I recommend to close an issue with a condition of a signed 3-year mitigation monitoring and maintenance agreement with a qualified professional.
Okay? Thank you. All right. I would accept a motion from a commissioner if there is one.
Alex, are you going to make a motion?
No.
No? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion for a closing issue with condition of submission of a signed 3-year mitigation monitoring and maintenance agreement with a qualified professional for the area at 352 Mashpee Neck Road. I think that's all we need, right?
And would you like to include the signage on the pathway for
No access.
no access,
Oh.
kayaks or swimming or no access?
Happy to accept the amendment.
No access to Saltmarsh, and then we'll work with Concom staff to address mitigation
To
concerns.
address the mitigation that the last speaker.
Yep, mitigation
reference.
concerns for the Frog Pond.
So, Dan and Drew, is that worded correctly?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Okay?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion amongst commissioners before I call for a vote? Hearing none. Alex?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes. Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Good luck with everything. It's a big project.
honestly, Nick's plans make it palatable. They do such a good job.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's fine.
You're all set?
Yeah. What did I do wrong?
That's technically it.
We'll convene as soon
Gonna-
as Alex returns.
Take a 1 or 2 minute recess here until Alex gets back in the room. Time for commercial.
One of our
No,
sponsors.
it's time for donuts. Can I just say, it's time for glazed honeydew.
As you don't leave the room.
You didn't have to wait.
We took
We
a
did.
couple of minutes. We did, because they never quorum.
Didn't have a quorum
We
with
need
that.
a quorum to listen?
For anything?
Open hearing, anything. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
See how valuable you are?
Well, you should be.
How dare you?
You're well worth the wait.
Okay, let's
I don't know, it's late.
get back to work here.
Madam Vice Chair.
Back in session. I'm now going to call the 6:18 hearing for 35 James Circle, Peter and Patricia Briggs, trustees. Proposed construction and maintenance of attached garage, utilities, hardscaping, and landscaping. Representative is Cape and Islands Engineering. This hearing is continued from June 29, and it is an RDA. Good evening. If I can have your name for the record, please.
Good evening, Raul Lizardi from Cape and Islands Engineering, representing the applicant on this project, Peter Briggs, who's the property owner and developer for this proposed garage. This hearing was continued from a month ago. The main reason for continuing was that at the hearing, we had presented the plans with a two-tier Mashpee inland bank. And at the hearing, and after reviewing with staff, the Mashpee Inland Bank is the first retaining wall tier. And then we were asked to explore how this Mashpee Inland Bank kind of shapes itself on the two abutting properties. So we expanded the survey on these two properties. So the two adjacent properties, they do have landform that does continue the Mashpee Inland Bank further upward. But that upward movement of the Mashpee Inland Bank is approximately the same inland bank that we depicted in the first set of plans from a month ago. So the only Mashpee Inland Bank that got realigned was the one that breaks at the first tier of the retaining wall. So the setbacks are practically the same that we had from before to that Mashpee Inland Bank. The existing concrete patio is located 24 feet from that inland bank, and the proposed modifications to that patio into a portion of the patio into a garage and storage, and the rest of the driveway into garage is roughly 34.8 feet from the same inland bank, Mashpee Inland Bank. The plan was also revised to show kind of side-by-side depictions of the property, one side with a background aerial image, just to clarify what is on the site, because I believe at the first hearing there was some confusion when we're trying to explain that we are replacing a parking area that is already paved with a garage use and an existing patio on the lower part of the property with part of the garage and storage below. So this depiction of the two different side views, I believe, better represents what is proposed. There was some comments about another project that suffers some erosion problems. And at this project, we're only showing a single row of erosion controls and limits of work. Part of the revision here, we have a two-tier erosion control. The first one that we had shown from a month ago is the same one, but then we have one that's further up away from the existing timber wall, which kind of aligns with the top of the stairs. The property to the right on the image is higher, so we don't think there's going to be any erosion happening to that side since they are higher in elevations. So the erosion is really, or the protection against erosion is really towards the pond from the project. There was comments about the cluster of birch trees that are at the property. Those birch trees were planted by the property owner's father. He wants to keep them. Those who went to the site noticed that it is a cluster of birch trees. The main original tree, typical of birch trees, they grow to a certain age and they naturally die. There is a stump at the middle of this cluster. That was the original tree. There is now about 6 more birch trees that are all around. These trees are going to be between 5 feet and 9 feet from the proposed garage. This is a garage. This is not an 8-foot foundation excavation, so this is only a 4-foot excavation. The homeowner wants to keep the tree. There may be the one that is closest one, which is the 4-inch one that is closest to the proposed garage that may need to be removed, but he wants to keep the cluster. So he is proposing one additional tree located 10 feet away from that proposed corner of the garage, and it's depicted on the plan as shown. There was also some comments at the first hearing about the regulations and kind of the description of some of the requirements for mitigation. So the 3 regulations that this project kind of falls under is Regulation 12, which is mitigation, Regulation 18, which is inland banks, and Regulation 29, which is the buffer zone. This proposed project, as a replacement of existing structures development in the patios and the driveway, does not trigger a waiver of any of the regulations in the town of Mashpee regulation. So the part of the regulation on Regulation 12 mitigation that is for waivers to calculate mitigation, it's not applicable because we're not proposing a new structure. We're just replacing structures that are there with a garage. So we believe it doesn't trigger mitigation per se under that particular section of the regulation. We are not clearing natural vegetation to propose this garage. So what we're proposing as an improvement, currently there is no drainage for this parking and this patio. The square footage that is being occupied by this garage, the roof is going to be controlled with a drywall, so that is an improvement. The other improvement is we're adding a tree for compensating any possible tree loss. And other than that, we believe this is still a project that can be approved by this board. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up to commissioners first.
Yeah, I just have a question. The timber steps and retaining walls that are to be removed and then replaced with a concrete retaining wall, is that area going to be regraded? Or what's the plan for where they're to be removed?
So it's the tier portion that's going to be tiers also, but not of timber. This timber is carousel timber,
Yeah.
so that all is going to be replaced with probably, after the main retaining wall, which is the concrete, is going to be probably masonry in the same kind of fashion.
Okay.
Same number of tiers, though.
Right, the applicant understand that if he does anything higher than 3.5 feet for each tier, it's considered a structure.
Right.
So the main one is gonna be the structure, the other ones, he keeps it below that. And you can do it, he could actually do it with less than 3 tiers, but it could be the same 3 tiers. But the stairs are gone, there's not gonna be stairs.
And there's no fill going in there?
No, they're digging material out.
Okay, okay.
Are there any questions or comments?
I think I'm good.
That's it? No? Sandy?
I'm good.
Okay. That lawn area, Raul, that's within the limit of work, you've got 2 different siltation barriers, correct?
Right.
I know when I was on the site, I looked at that area, and I looked at those walls. They're not in very good shape either, but that's not part of the project, I understand that. But the lawn itself, to me, didn't look like it meets our lawn standards. So having that inside the limit of work, I'd like to see something to address that lawn.
So yes, to touch on that, we did ask the applicant, just before we submitted this application, the applicant spread natural compost over the site. And just before the hearing, there was a few rainstorms that we had, and the grass flourished. But it is not fertilizer. He did state that he is not using fertilizer in this site. It just happened that the timing was the right timing when the compost was spread throughout and the grass kind of flourished. But he is willing to accept that regulation and adhere to the town of Mashpee lawn standards.
Okay. Yeah, because even, I know it was very green, but it also didn't look like the right combination of grasses based on our standards to me, but I'm not a lawn expert.
Right, he didn't reseed it. He just spread the compost, and what's growing kept on growing. So the species of grass, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good year for grass. It's really hard to keep up with the mowing.
Not in my yard.
Oh, God.
No other questions from commissioners? I'll go out to the public. If there's any questions or comments, this would be a time. No? Okay, Drew, I'll come back to you.
Nothing really more to add. I think all of my comments have been already discussed or addressed. As long as he's not fertilizing that lawn area, that was one of the forms of mitigation that I had recommended in my notes to the commissioners, was that it could be top dressed and reseeded so that we know the lawn is going to be compliant with our lawn standards, that being a 90% rye fescue mix. So that could be something that I don't think he would have a problem with, easy to achieve. Other than that, I think it's, I would recommend a negative determination.
So Drew, just tell me what your opinion is, the Board of Health and their commentary on whether or not the garage property might in fact be used as a bedroom, considered a bedroom, and how it would affect the septic.
Right.
Should that be a condition, hypothetically, should we do it?
I mean, we could certainly make a condition, I mean, it's not usual to condition RDAs, but
know.
we could certainly make it a condition or ensure that Board of Health conducts their review in their normal routine. I have faith in the Board of Health to do that.
I do, I have faith in the Board of Health, I just didn't know if we should be locking arms and saying, yes, that's a condition.
I don't think it's necessary.
If you don't think so,
Yeah.
okay.
If there's any proposed increase in flow, they'd be directed back to us.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
It's just one of my bugaboos, as you know.
Yeah,
Sure.
always good to be vigilant.
Vigil.
Okay.
Don't put a bedroom on top of that garage.
Don't tell me.
Okay, then, I'll accept a motion if we have one on this RDA.
Sure. I'll make a motion for a negative determination for the RDA for 35 James Circle. Yeah.
You want to include non-standards for 31?
Sure, with the condition of, or calling attention to the lawn standards with Regulation 31 to achieve a 90% rye fescue mix.
Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Sandy. Any discussion or comments on the motion that we have? Nothing? We're good? Okay, I'll call for a vote. Alex?
Yeah.
Marjorie?
Yes,
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Back and see that lawn when we don't have as much rain. We'll now call the 621 hearing for 25 Menemsha Road, Paul J. and Catherine M. Thurston. This is a proposed raise and replace of an existing single-family dwelling. The representative is Drohan and Toshio and Morgan PC. I probably didn't pronounce that right, sorry. And this is a hearing that's continued from 6/29. Notice of intent, DEP file number 433245. Before we begin, I made it, I thought, clearly evident that I wanted to have all materials turned into the Conservation Office by Friday previous to this hearing. That would have been July 21. And in the past few days, I've received materials both from the applicant's attorney in terms of the nitrogen loading calculation sheets and from Wilson Associates. And as I mentioned in the first hearing, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, for a group of volunteer people to review everything that we have before us in such a short time period. I'll listen to everything that's being presented tonight, obviously, and I have some questions on the nitrogen calculation sheet myself, but I still feel as though I have not had enough time to scale out your plans and look at the square footages that have been determined on that calculation sheet to be accurate. But with that, I'll open it up. If you just give your name for the record, we can begin.
Thank you, Chair Colombo. Good evening, everyone. You may recall my name is Adam Brodsky. I'm an environmental and land use lawyer, and I'm working with the Thurstons, who are the applicants. Next to me is Brad Holmes, our professional wetland scientist from ECR, and you know Mr. Thurston. Unfortunately, Mark Flaherty, our registered professional engineer, is on vacation this week and is not available to attend. And as the chair indicated, this is a notice of intent to reconstruct and elevate an existing single-family dwelling and deck to comply with the flood-resistant construction requirements of FEMA and the Massachusetts State Building Code. We are not proposing to expand the footprint of either the dwelling or the deck. And this is being done for flood protection. Just as an aside, as I was doing some additional research this morning, I happened to see a press release from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute that's working with the town on flood protection for climate resiliency, which has resulted in a reduction in the town's flood insurance premiums. That's the purpose of this project, to take an existing non-conforming structure and elevate it such that it is above the base flood elevation to comply with FEMA requirements. And as you indicated, we were here several weeks ago in June and had provided to the commission a revised site plan that actually increased the amount of planting mitigation. And also, we had provided copies of the foundation plans, which identified the concrete piers and the relevant elevations to demonstrate compliance with our flood-resistant construction requirements. The commission at that time obviously wanted more time to review that, and so we agreed to a continuance. I recall that the only two asks or deliverables on our part, one, we were asked to meet with the concerned abutter to see if we could resolve or answer any questions and resolve any differences. We met briefly with Ms. Wilson and the abutter shortly after the hearing and offered to meet again, and that invitation for a further meeting was declined. So I just wanted the commission to understand that we did reach out. Second, we had agreed to provide some additional information regarding the septic permit for the proposed denitrification septic tank. You'll remember that that is not part of this notice of intent. That was separately permitted by Mr. Thurston, who has a permit for that. I provided that to the commission on July 13th. When that work is going to be performed, that will presumably be reviewed by your conservation agent. I understand that these sorts of repairs are typically handled as an administrative approval, but that will go through your review process at the time that work is being proposed. I should note that just as, again, as another point of information, became aware of the new DEP nitrogen loading maps that were released or became effective on July 7, 2023 in connection with the revisions of Title V that recently went into effect. And I just want to point out that neither this property nor the pond are actually located within a nitrogen sensitive area as mapped by Mass DEP. Again, a point of information, but obviously Mr. Thurston and the Thurstons have agreed to provide additional denitrification for their property. Additionally, in my letter, Mark Flaherty, our registered professional engineer, confirmed with the Board of Health that we do not need to upgrade the entire septic system nor perform any additional testing in connection with that Title V upgrade. And in my letter, there's a copy of the emails between Mark and the Board of Health agent. We also provided to the commission an updated response letter from Brad Holmes that's dated July 14, 2023. And that was really a response to the prior letter from the abutter. And I'm not going to go through that in great detail, but I'd like to just touch upon a couple of key points because, again, at least from our perspective, it's a fairly simple wetlands project. We're simply seeking to reconstruct and elevate our presently non-conforming structures. First, just as a point of information, the test pits that we were asked about are actually shown on the plans. I know that there are questions regarding surface water elevation of the pond and groundwater flow, and we respectfully suggest that it's really not relevant to this project, which is located within land subject to coastal storm flowage and buffer zone to BVWs. That information is simply just not relevant to what we're proposing. Again, we provided our foundation plans to demonstrate compliance with the building code. That will be confirmed by the building commissioner. Again, we provide that as for informational purposes for the Conservation Commission. We're just trying to keep this matter focused on the important issues. We clarified that we're proposing gravel beneath the deck and concrete beneath the elevated dwelling. The dwelling has an existing basement. It's always had an existing basement. That foundation is going to be removed, the excavation backfilled, and the concrete poured beneath the house. Again, it's not going beyond the existing footprint of the structure. As I mentioned, we're proposing increased plantings for a total of 1,200 square feet. So we have lawn being converted to plantings in this instance. There were references to other plans in Ms. Wilson's letter. Those plans apparently related to a prior notice of intent for a pool project that was withdrawn without prejudice. I really don't know the relevance of the pool project. That's not before you. The project plans that govern this were submitted with the notice of intent. Again, a minor detail, there were some questions regarding the lawn drain details. Those are shown also on the plan of record. We provided a copy to the commission of the application to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a special permit, which is required for this project that has been submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And as you're well aware, we need to demonstrate that we've applied for all obtainable permits under the state wetlands regulations. With respect to regulation number 30, I bear personal responsibility for the confusion on that issue. When I got the file and reviewed what I thought were the publicly available regulations, I was not aware that regulation 30 had been adopted. The copy of the regulations I looked at indicated that it simply had been reserved. So to the extent that I've caused any confusion on that issue, I apologize to the commission. I do question, although it's ultimately not relevant since we submitted calculations, I do question whether it was intended to apply to a project like this, where we're not proposing any additional square footage, any increase in footprints, as I mentioned, or the construction of additional impervious areas. And again, we're not proposing a new septic system. Notwithstanding that, Mr. McManus made it clear that he wanted to see the calculations which were prepared and stamped by Mark Flaherty, our registered professional engineer. Those calculations indicate a nitrogen load of approximately 8.7 parts per million milligrams per liter, which is below the maximum standard you have for fresh water bodies of 19 milligrams per liter. I'd suggest in this instance that a more stringent requirement is not needed. As I indicated, this area is not mapped as a nitrogen-sensitive area, at least by the Mass DEP. I'm well aware of the Commission's concerns regarding nitrogen loading. I'm not suggesting that those concerns are not serious, but I just, as a point of information, it's not mapped. We're not proposing any discharge towards the pond. Again, the purpose of this project is to essentially reconstruct and elevate these structures in place. And I'd respectfully suggest that those figures, even if you had some questions, are conservative because they don't take into consideration the proposed future denitrification tank, which would also reduce nitrogen loading at the site. So respectfully suggest that 19 milligrams per liter is appropriate under the circumstances. And again, we have a wide margin between what's been calculated and your standard. And again, there'll be a further reduction in nitrogen once the septic tank upgrade has been completed. Again, we're happy to answer any questions. And I'd simply repeat that the purpose of this project is to achieve climate resiliency by improving flood protection, which is beneficial for the environment and beneficial for the neighbors because you have less chance of property damage as a result of coastal flooding. So thank you. And again, Brad's here to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'll open it up for questions that any of the commissioners have, and we'll go from there.
I have one quick question.
Yes,
To
Marjorie.
the applicant. Did I hear you correctly in your opening comments? You made reference to the septic system and that despite the fact that it's not required, you are going to upgrade to an IM.
That's right. Mr. Thurston has got a permit to upgrade the septic tank to a denitrification tank. That's correct.
Okay.
I had a question about the test pits. I think there was a letter, I don't see it here, but that, Brad, you were going to address the test pits, which there are two test pits. And I believe one was older than the other one. Can you tell us which one?
I don't recall that I was going to respond to the commission on a test pit detail.
That might have been Mr. Flaherty, the engineer, is my guess.
Yeah, and again, the information is provided on the site plan. Again, I'm not certain the relevance of the test pits to an elevation project. Again, we're in a coastal floodplain, but the information, whatever information we have has been presented.
That's where I was going to go with that. We're not proposing any, the activities that would get close to groundwater, like a septic system or something like that, proposed that the pilings are irrespective of the groundwater elevation. One thing to note, we are proposing a significant amount of mitigation with the removal of existing turf and revegetation with natural vegetation. There isn't a trigger that we're required to under the Mashpee regulations to come into compliance with a mitigation requirement, but we're proposing that 1,200 square feet anyway. So overall it's a conversion of lawn to create somewhat of a vegetated buffer to the pond in the sense that we can only work within our lot, but there isn't a vegetated buffer now to Dean's Pond significant, in that area. So we will have a vegetated buffer at pond completion.
All set, Sandy?
Yes, thank you.
Alex, do you have anything?
Oh, wait.
No.
Not yet.
I don't know if you can answer my question on the drawings that were submitted for the foundation. It's probably more a question for Mr. Flaherty. But it says future elevator, and I didn't hear any information proposed about this future elevator.
Mr. Colombo, there is no elevator proposed. We're not seeking authorization for an elevator. This was designed in the future, that there may be an elevator. If that happens, again, that would likely be something that would have to come before the Conservation Commission. So we're not seeking, in this notice of intent, authorization to install an elevator.
Okay. But it's on the plan, so I wanted to get that verified.
I believe it's being designed to accommodate an elevator if in the future, for example, the residents would need to have the ability to use an elevator, but it's not being proposed.
Right.
So, and we would have no problem with a special condition from the commission to say that you're not authorizing an elevator, and if an elevator is being proposed, that issue would have to come back to the Conservation Commission.
In the process of designing this foundation, was there any thought given to the fact that in a raise and replace, you take everything out and you're starting from scratch, correct?
I'm not certain that's correct because, again, we have an existing deck.
You're not going to use the existing foundation for this house? You're gonna-
No, sir, that's correct.
So my question is this: was there any consideration given to, instead of pouring a solid concrete slab, to, before the pour, put in a series of capture drainage pipes, pour a foundation which would have drainage vents in them, and tie those pipes into a proposed dry well installation? What I'm getting at is, in the event of a coastal flow, the direction of the water is going to be coming from, hold on, bear with me for a second. It's going to be coming off that eastern boundary. It's going to pass through the home along this foundation because it's up on piers, and it's going to be headed right towards the septic system area. If it was a minor flow, and we would hope it was no flow, but if it was a minor flow, and it was designed with a series of drainage pipes underneath the concrete slab, with drains in the slab, that could alleviate a major potential problem in the future of water intrusion into the septic field area. Or perhaps instead of a solid concrete foundation, maybe permeable pavers instead. I'm looking for a way to mitigate water damage that, quite honestly, I think we're all under the impression it's coming. And if we're in a position now of designing something to withstand a problem down the road, so to speak, why not look at all the possibilities? So, and again, I don't expect that any of the three of you would answer this. It's probably more of an engineering question, but I'm kind of surprised that that wasn't a possibility, or at least presented.
Thank you, Chair Colombo. I'm not an engineer. I have, however, permitted dozens of coastal projects, many within the velocity zone, many within the AE zone. I've never seen anyone propose or design a system that could potentially capture stormwater, floodwaters from a coastal event, because if you have a 100-year event, that entire site would theoretically be inundated. I should know, as a practical matter, I don't think that has actually happened at the site. It's not unusual to work with a homeowner who has a property within the floodplain who said, I've lived here for 70 years, this doesn't flood. You're well aware that this is designed or in response to the mapping exercise. Having said that, theoretically, the volume of water from a coastal event, particularly in the velocity zone, would be so substantial, I'm not sure you could design anything that could capture or mitigate that level of flow. With respect to the materials, I don't know whether, Mr. Thurston, again, I'm not a design engineer, whether the use of pavers beneath the house.
Again, I understand there's some structural reasons for the piers, why they want to use the slab. It helps stabilize the piers from swaying. So that's my understanding from how they.
Yeah, and again, my experience in coastal environments is that you don't necessarily want to see pavers, which actually can be picked up in a coastal storm event and moved around. So I think, I'm guessing, again, I don't want to represent to the board, I'm guessing that was the purpose of the concrete slab, to secure the piers. Again, if perhaps this was an A zone or something less than that, I've seen pavers being used, but I definitely have seen resistance from conservation commissions with pavers within a velocity zone for fear that those pavers those then become projectiles, and it defeats the purpose of elevating the house.
In a catastrophic storm, you're correct, but in a non-catastrophic event, say a foot of water comes in, 2 feet of water, I mean, that's a mess, and that could cause substantial problems to that whole septic area that, from the direction the water's coming from, behind the house. So I was just looking at the plans and thinking to myself,
yes, sir,
if I were doing this, I would consider putting some kind of drains underneath this building, because it's a big concrete slab that's being laid out right in the velocity zone. That's all. I'm just bringing it up as a.
And again, I don't know whether the agent has any opinions regarding this issue. I've never seen it in this application.
Well, would you like to comment on that, Drew, or?
My only comment is, I think this is a substantial improvement in regards to accommodating conditions in a velocity zone over the existing conditions. And I think they've achieved compliance with building code in the velocity zone.
Okay. Any other questions from commissioners? Nothing else? Anybody in the public? Yes.
Can you give her 2 minutes?
Yeah. Before you,
That, ice.
2 minutes, please, for this. Thank you.
Okay.
what's the date on that?
Good evening.
Before you-
Arlene
Before you
Wilson.
do begin, I do have the 2 letters that you sent. And, we're aware of everything that's in those, so.
I understand.
Okay.
Arlene Wilson, AM Wilson Associates, here for the abutter and other opponents to the project. And I will be brief. I know you've got all my letters. They're rather long. They're a little technical and boring. But they all come down to the same thing. Every set of plans you have for this project shows something different. The existing conditions plan deletes a vast number of things that are on the site now. If you approve subject to the plans you have no way of knowing whether the grove of trees on the southeast property line is going to stay or go because they don't show on the site plan anymore. The ERC plan that's up on the screen now shows things that are on the site now that aren't on the engineering drawing, including the extra patio extension in the middle that I believe, based on the architectural plans, isn't intended to stay. And the garden that somehow appeared in the last couple of months, but never was there before. So my concern as a consultant and as a former member of a couple of different conservation commissions is that you leave yourself open to having things built that you don't want built and not built that you do want built. This isn't a problem with this project that's particular to the Conservation Commission. It's happened with other boards as well. And the 2 copies that I provided to you a few minutes ago are a copy of the septic system variance for the system that's in there now. That system has a variance not just for a 4-foot separation from groundwater rather than 5, but 3.8, because they couldn't make the groundwater even when they told the Board of Health that the groundwater was at 2 feet. We now know, based on the engineering plan that you have from Flaherty, that the groundwater is at 3 feet, which means that they're a foot shorter than that. They only have 2.8 feet to groundwater. The plan that they gave to the Board of Health in March, the basis for their IA system addition, failed to show the groundwater change to 3 feet. So it's another instance where the information on the plans is not complete or not accurate or reflects a different project than the one that's being asked for. You wanted to know, and the proponents wanted to know, what do my clients want? What my clients want is for plans to reflect both the actual existing conditions and the actual proposed conditions, so that you and all the other boards that have to review this project can do an assessment based on real conditions and a real project. That will allow you to set conditions that conform to your regulations and the other boards that conform to theirs. Things like the elevator, for instance, that show on the foundation plans, the architecturals that you got. And people say, well, you can write a condition that says we can't have one unless we come back. Take it off the plan. Then it isn't an issue. And if they want to do it, they can come back. Because that elevator will need a well, and it will need to go to the groundwater elevation, and perhaps below. You still don't know if they need to pump groundwater to put the concrete piers in. I think Adam mentioned that he thought the nitrogen loading calculations had not considered the AI system. In fact, they did. They showed 19 milligrams per liter nitrogen for the output from the septic system. A standard system has 35. So the changes in the nitrogen calculations would not be better than what they showed. And the issue is, you know, what are they really going to do in terms of hardscape and vegetation? In my experience, pollinator gardens frequently get fertilized. And the thing that's there now, although I haven't been on the site and I'm using distance pictures, but those things don't look like native plants to me. They're nice plants, they're good pollinator plants, but they're not natives. So, you know, I think the project's not ready for the big time. You need to get plans that have real existing conditions and then a project that's based on those plans instead of the two that you have now. And I know you've got all my other comments. I'll be quiet.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You were no more boring than anybody else that comes before this commission. Or that we are among each other.
Thank you.
There you go.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I do, yeah. I speak for myself. I bore myself often.
All right.
Chair
So-
Colombo, would it be appropriate to briefly respond at the appropriate time?
Just wait a second.
Hold on one second.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing, we have, if we were to approve this, close an issue.
Yep.
The conditions we're looking at would be, we would need to address if any groundwater is encountered during digging for the
For the
posts,
piers,
the
right.
piers.
Mhm.
How do we condition that? I don't recall what we've done in the past.
We would have to have a plan showing the area on the site that's going to be used for the dewatering.
Okay, so a dewatering plan. If groundwater is intercepted.
Right.
We would want an updated plan, a submission of revised plans. We could approve it subject to a condition for the submission of revised plans showing where dewatering would go, that there is no elevator
Right.
for this project, that native species are to be used for the pollinator area. Is there anything else that we've heard at this time that we would need to put in a condition to approve this?
I could just add a detail regarding the garden that I did provide administrative approval for that. It was a misunderstanding by Mr. Thurston, who attended one of our public meetings in regards to jurisdiction. And I had mentioned that gardens, in so many words, lawn mowing, gardens, those landscaping, basic landscaping, aren't typically the subject of mitigation. He kind of misunderstood that and took that to mean that if I'm going to put in a garden, I don't need to let Concom know. It's a very innocuous garden, and I did supply administrative approval and have a conversation with Mr. Thurston, and that is the background to the garden today. Yeah.
Okay, so that's not, I'm not overly concerned about that, I don't think.
So, just to.
Right.
I'm glad you clarified.
Yeah.
But was there anything else?
I don't think so.
Would we feel comfortable as a commission closing and issuing subject to, the appropriate discrepancies shown on a plan? And everything we are concerned about shown, or is this something that we want to spend more time late at night going over again in the future?
Right.
Am I hearing correctly that we can, those were exactly the same issues that I was concerned about, I think, the rest of the commission perhaps?
Yes.
I think I heard that we can do it with conditions, and we don't have to either continue. I'd be comfortable with that. If you're comfortable with that as a motion, I think we're properly protected from those three issues.
Do you feel comfortable with that as chair?
Yeah, I'm concerned about the elevator. It states right on the plan.
Right,
Future elevator.
it needs to be pulled out of there.
It needs to come off.
Yep.
It's not being proposed.
It's a valid point, just to get
Take
it
it off.
right, right? Mhm.
Okay. And there may, so you are aware, there may need to be multiple iterations of the plan, subject to what the staff tells you. If a plan is created and it's still not right, it may need to come back to them before you could act on said order of conditions. The plan needs to meet what they're looking for.
Thank you. We're happy to work with staff. We don't necessarily agree that there are discrepancies in the plans. As I've indicated, we have stamp plans that show the house, the deck, and the mitigation. That's the only work being authorized here. We're not asking to do anything else. And if something else ever happened at that site, it would be subject to enforcement. With respect to the elevator, I just want to be clear, it makes perfect sense for the structural engineer to design the house to accommodate an elevator.
Sure.
So we can't take, we don't want to change the plan because you can't put it back in, but we can stipulate that we're not proposing an elevator. And by the way,
Elevator for future approvals.
and by the way, just so you understand, the hydraulics for any future elevator would also have to be located above the base flood elevation. So you're likely looking at a head house. You're not looking at a well at the bottom for hydraulics. So, but again, we're not proposing any elevator in this, and we're happy to agree to that condition.
And just to clarify from the plan, I think, as was mentioned by Arlene Wilson, it would be good to have an existing conditions plan and proposed plan side by side, so we have absolute clarity about what exists and what's proposed. I think that's really
Happy to accommodate the commission and make sure you have all of the information in your files so that you can ensure compliance in the
That
future.
would be good. And please note, Friday before, what do you want?
Well,
Friday noon?
it's our hope that you'll close the hearing and approve orders.
Hopefully, we're not doing this again.
Working with staff, so that timeline before a meeting, it's not expected to come back to the commission
Yes.
anymore. It's going to be handled by staff.
Okay, good.
Yes, and
All right.
they will not be issued an order of conditions until it is approved by the
Until those
staff.
plans come in.
Yes, so there's no concern
Alright.
there.
And so that existing plan would be much different than what we're looking at here. It would have the flagpole, it would have
Whatever exists on the site.
whatever exists, the
Mm-hmm.
firehead, whatever's there. Correct. The generator's going, right?
Yes, sir.
That's out, and the existing AC platform is being removed.
Correct.
The shed is staying.
I'm sorry, sir?
The shed is staying?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that we need that plan.
Yeah.
Just because it's not here.
Sure.
Okay.
Chairman Colombo, the flagpole is shown on, I can see it right there, do you see it? Where it's like, looks like a flower?
Yeah, so like that plan up there is not what we have in front of us, just so you're aware of this.
Yeah.
That's not what we're looking at, so it
This
does.
plan's a mitigation plan.
This is the mitigation plan. I apologize. I forgot to download the, but you have it in front of you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, let's try this again, if you're
Good
ready.
with that.
Okay. Like
We're
to
all
make
set.
a motion to close an issue for 25 Menumsha Road with the following conditions. That this is subject to the submission of revised plans for an accurate current conditions plan for the, I'm losing my mind. What is
Current conditions and
It's too
proposed.
late.
the proposed conditions plan shows the dewatering,
There you go.
any dewatering that may be necessary for groundwater inundation with the piers, and to indicate that no elevator is proposed at this time.
Okay.
And to indicate that does say native wildflower pollinator garden on the plan, but I just want to hammer home that those are
There you
natives
go.
going in. I think that's it.
You want to
think you got
restrict
it.
fertilizer at all? Per regulation 31?
And that
We can-
any
we can have
fertilization
that
of the
as-
property
as-
goes within regulation 31. I
Yeah,
think that's
That's
the
a
order
boilerplate.
statement.
Yep.
And that the order will not be issued until the plans are met, are approved by staff.
Okay.
Did I do it?
Second.
All right,
That was the tough one.
it was.
Okay, so we have the motion and a second for that motion with those conditions. Any further discussion on what we have? We're good?
I think so.
Okay, I'll call for a vote. Alex?
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Motion carries.
Thank
We
you.
did it.
Good night.
Thank you.
Get those plans in.
I wasn't sure. I mean, we're really good at continuing, so I
know,
wasn't
so
sure.
that avoided yet another continuance. Yeah, no.
Put the work on the agents over here.
Yeah. That's what you're there for, so, okay.
And put the onus on Drew.
I think they're happy for that.
I think they have.
They need something to do,
I was
right?
trying to help you out there. At noon, come on. Right? And you've got to say that. You were right. I remember. I'm such a nerd. Yeah. I am.
If it's okay, a
She was
couple of
right on
things
that
I'd like to highlight.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we're passing around
Alrighty.
signatures.
Yep, I'm going to back up to pre and post agenda items and turn it over to Drew for the ones that he wants to discuss.
So just a couple of things I wanted to highlight on these updates. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the town was awarded an Executive Office of Environmental Affairs grant for Red Brook Road planning and permitting of $127,000, so that's great. Very happy
That
for
is
Catherine Laurent, the DPW director, was successful in that grant application.
Nicely done.
Yes, absolutely. We did convene in our bylaw review subcommittee, Paul, Alex, and Sandy, and myself, to continue to update Regulation 25, land subject to coastal storm flow, which we're getting close to completing that one, and taking a look at Regulation 31, fertilizer. And I have a great document I'm going to disperse regarding Nantucket's fertilizer bylaw. Not as lengthy as the no adverse impact document, so it should be a little easier to
Okay, thank
digest. And then the email I sent out, or included you guys in, about these site visits with NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. They are a federal agency under the USDA. They've granted numerous grants to towns on Cape Cod in terms of improving fish passage and stormwater runoff. And there's one other criterion I'm trying to think of that they cover. But mostly fish passage for our purposes. So took them on site visits to all three of our herring runs, and they had staff come up from their headquarters in Fort Worth, Texas. So they're going to get started on a redesign for the Santuit ladder that is entirely paid for by NRCS. That's great to see that happening. And then other improvements to both the Mashpee and Quashnet fish ladders as well, with full grant coverage for all aspects, planning, permitting, and construction. So it's really amazing news.
Yeah.
That combined with the NOAA grants coming up that can supplement funding for Upper Quashnet and other restoration projects. So we got a lot of grant opportunities coming up that I'm really excited about and will help to supplement and reduce the town's financial obligations to all these projects, so.
Excellent.
Good
That's so
stuff.
great.
Yeah,
Nice. All good news.
yeah, absolutely.
Great.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know you like skimmed over it, but the land acquisition subcommittee.
Yes.
Can we still plan on convening and then like advising the EOC?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
And then I don't know how it works with the creation of subcommittees.
I just have to let town clerk know that it'll be advisory, so we don't have to have like public posting.
Okay. Can we have members outside of Concom members?
I don't see why not. I'll check with the town clerk on that, but I'm pretty sure it'll be fine. Yeah, members at large from the public.
That did come up last night at the EOC meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
And
there
it was
should
all
be
just-
representation from different groups.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
one or like just a couple, to help strengthen it and
Maybe some
And you're
real estate
volunteering for
agents.
I am volunteering to chair it.
Real estate agents,
Yep.
yeah, that would be a good representation.
There's a lot out there that needs to be looked at.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't come looking for us. We have to go looking for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a procedural question? I
Yes.
feel like I leave a mess for Stacy every meeting, every
She
hearing.
told me she enjoys,
Does she enjoy the mess?
that's what she said.
Because if there's a way that I can organize.
When
it
she
to
used to
make
come
it-
to
I
the
just write her
meeting, she said,
notes in
don't worry
mine."
about it. The messier the
You
better.
keep her notes?
I write her notes in my binder and then she writes them back.
Oh, right. But so, why do we do that? Just to annoy her? It's a-
No, I
just
say
wanna
I
make
say
sure.
hi, Stacy, and I like write her notes.
Okay.
If you come in with donuts every once in a while.
Yeah, right? Bag it up.
They really like
Scones
scones.
just start. I want to see some action. All right. I feel guilty.
You need to mitigate. is what I'm saying.
Mitigate.
Are there any other updates there that you want to bring up?
That was
Any
all I
questions
had as
about?
far as highlighting.
Okay. Under the water quality issues, I just wanted to let you know that Monday morning, I'm going out with Nicole Corbett.
Great.
Oh.
Seaweed guru. Yeah.
The seaweed guru and water temperature and analysis person. The Barnstable County Extension Service is bringing a boat down to Aquay, and we're going out on their boat to do a lot of testing and photography in Pompanesett, so that should be an interesting ride for me.
So this is related as well to dredging, right?
This
Or
has
no,
nothing to
because-
do with the
No, it's
dredging.
Has nothing to do with
quality.
it. Because I saw the article this morning about Barnstable and the dredging and.
Yeah, the rig is here now, the dredging rig.
I know,
It's
yeah.
parked. In fact, we were on a site visit down on Gilman's Road, on our way, and it's parked right there. It's not doing anything, but it's. at least there.
Everybody in my, I call it my district now, like everyone in my district takes pictures of it and sends them to me.
What is that?
So when they gotta do something, so,
Just wait till it starts, you'll get more pictures.
I know.
So if there's a motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yay, second! Sandy, you can third it.
Third.
is a second? No discussion? Alex?
Yep.
Marjorie?
Yep.
Sandy?
Yes,
I vote yes as well. We're all set.
the seaweed was a mess on Southgate Beach.
Oh,
Heard it's pretty
Really?
bad, huh?
and it's just oscillating back
It
and
came,
forth.
it came
What's
in one
happening?
day.
It's
and
covered.
It's just
It was
loads.
right down to the.
I'm talking
to the
feet and
sand
feet.
bottom. It wasn't like it was
Like
just.
you can't swim.
And then.
With a few
it went away
jellies
the
mixed
next
in here
morning.
and there, so if kids are playing in it.
And
Well,
then
it's
it
funny
came
because
back
my son
that
is like,
same
Mom,
morning.
it's easy to catch
It
eels.
was
You just
weird.
go in the
It was
seaweed
like
and you
gone
pick up your whole
and then
net,
back again.
and then you have
Right
eels.
there.
I'm so glad you
Yeah.
told me. I thought you
Pretty
said that.